Some background info. I'm a 27-year-old male living in Australia, Chinese, Papua New Guinean, and German background. Dad and his side of the family is largely superstitious. My siblings and I are rather out of touch with spiritual beliefs and Chinese culture as we grew up in Australia. My story was thought nothing more of but a sleepy night terror until I remembered something my grandmother told me as a teenager. I thought you might enjoy my story. It begins below. About 14 years ago, when I was living in my family home, I was getting into the habit of rearranging my room just for the satisfaction of it. It always felt refreshing to do a mass clean and reset the layout of my bedroom. My grandmother had travelled interstate to visit my dad and the rest of our family. My dad's side of the family lives around his mother. My grandmother walked by my bedroom to say hello, and she saw I had rearranged my bed to face the door. She warned me that it can attract spirits and ruin your sleep, continuing to explain that it was a bad omen to arrange your bed in such a way. Our family has a Chinese background. A quick Google and you'll find things linked to bad feng shui and feelings of dissatisfaction ect. The scariest thing I've found is the cultural belief that spirits may drag you out the door against your will. All cultural superstition about feet facing the door whilst sleeping. Prior to sharing this story, I found a comment on YouTube of someone sharing a similar legend. Sleeping facing an open doorway can create a spiritual portal between worlds, can attract bad omens and spirits, SET, which is not far off from what my own family has spoken about before. Raised in Western culture in Australia, my grandmother's warning wasn't so much something I believed, but it did scare me a little at the time. I was like 12 to 13. Living at home. Nothing ever happened in that house, probably because I lived in a house full of family. I kept the door closed as a kid because I was terrified of the dark. As a teenager, I kept it closed for privacy. Years later, when I had moved out as an adult on my own in 2017, I once again set up my bedroom with the bed facing the door. I loved this apartment and had since outgrown my fear of the dark, which meant I wouldn't close my bedroom door at night whilst I slept anymore. Basically, the whole apartment felt like it was my bedroom, right? I was situated in a nice enough suburb about 15 minutes drive from the city, so not rural. Safe enough to walk to the gym at 12 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. I felt very safe here. In that same apartment, I'm on the phone with a friend. It's a long call from 10 p.m. till around 3 a.m. at this point. She says, "I'll be right back. I need to use the bathroom." I'm extremely sleep deprived at this point, and the only thing that was keeping me up was our conversation. So I'm in bed, staring through my open bedroom door. It's a pitch black hallway that leads to the front door. All the curtains are shut up at the front end of the apartment, but I have some slight moonlight peeking through the blinds behind my bed. I'm fighting to stay awake, but I'm falling in and out of consciousness. My head is dropping like it's as heavy as bricks. My eyes close and I open them. Nothing. They close again and I fight to open them. Nothing. My eyes close again for a third time. I open them. There's a woman standing in my bedroom doorway, roughly 2 paces away from the foot of my bed. She is tall, has long arms, pale skin, long black hair covering her face, wearing dirty white rags and hunched over. It's the only way she can fit inside the door frame. My eyes shot open in fear. I'm literally staring at this thing. I blink and she has lunged at the bed. The moment her hand touched the foot of my bed, I blinked again. The woman had vanished. My grandmother may have been right, or it could have been the one and only night terror I've ever experienced. But I felt true fear in that moment. I got out of bed and closed my door. Don't think I ever slept without the door closed in that apartment after that night. Conveniently, my friend returns to the phone call once this is over. My grandmother was Chinese/Papua New Guinean, for any background on her spiritual relation to ghosts and legends. I've had one other ghost sighting since then as an adult in my family home in 2020, not nearly as dramatic, thankfully. However, my dad experienced a lot as a young man, typically around times of loss in the family. I'm 36 now, but the following happened to me when I was 19. A quick backstory is that I was, and still am a volunteer firefighter in a small West Australian town in the southwest. In addition to the normal volunteer firefighter ins and outs of attending incidents, I was also involved in the sports side of the fire brigade. This comprised of individual and team events, and the fire brigade you belonged to was your team, and across Western Australia there were about 30 such teams/brigades, and between October to April we would travel and compete. We had travelled to Geraldton to compete in the state championships in 1999, and I had, through hard work, won the Champion Fireman Award and was at the hosting fire brigades after event celebration and was enjoying myself with my team drinking beer and socialising, which started at around 5 p.m. While I admit I was pretty drunk, I was still travelling well, as there were a shitload of people and a lot of my time was spent talking to officials, older members and with friends catching up, so I had not really got my drink on yet. I needed to take a piss, so I just went around the corner and started to piss in the garden, like I had a few times already, the same being for every other bloke at the party, when during I got a phone call from an unknown number. Being away from the noise, I answered it, and I remember the guy asking for someone I didn't know and ended the call. After perhaps 10 or 15 seconds of, "Sorry, wrong number," I finished my piss, and then went straight back to the party. When I returned, I was absolutely in shock. Everyone had disappeared. It was dead quiet. Every table and chair was neatly stacked. All the rubbish, cleared the lights off and doors locked. There were no cars, and it was just dead quiet. With not a sound it appeared across the town. I was fucking confused. I took my phone out, and it was just after 4 a.m. What the fuck happened? I checked through it, and my phone showed literally dozens of missed calls and 30 or 40 text messages of people searching for me and looking for me. I called my mate and made it back to my hotel, and over the next few days confirmed with many people that I had been standing in a circle and excused myself to take a piss after I received a phone call, and that was the last anyone saw of me that night. Where I pissed was where everyone was pissing, so it is impossible that I could have been there unnoticed, and a group of friends searched around for me, but I was gone. I still don't know the explanation and am still as confused as fuck. When I was 19 or 20, I worked on the local council in Katanning, Western Australia, as a front-end loader operator. A lot of work we would do as expected was road resurfacing and repair, which meant a lot of gravel being carted to various locations throughout the Shire as required. The Shire owned, leased a gravel pit, being a cleared section surrounded by bush and scrub of a few hectares about 40 kilometres southeast of the town, which was absolutely nowhere near anything or anyone. Even the nearest farmhouse was probably 20 kilometres away, and with only 2 trucks running, it could be over an hour round trip before I was required to be back in the loader, so I used to look around. Nothing exciting other than absolute, untouched southwest Australian bush, with the occasional animal like rabbits and a fox, with quite a few kangaroos. I was an avid hunter back in those days, and never cared about going out alone, as I had grown up on farms and enjoyed stalking kangaroos, as they are very twitchy, and being with someone usually ended in too much noise. Because I had a key to the gravel pit through work, I returned in the afternoon and parked my car near my front-end loader and collected my rifle and knives and headed into the bush, probably around 4 p.m. Through quiet movement, I moved steadily further into the bush looking for kangaroos, but found none. It wasn't until about 6 p.m. I actually came across some in a clearing. Now it was near the end of winter and was actually getting on dark now, but that didn't really bother me too much as I knew the area and decided to continue. I crouched at the base of a white gum and shot a nice-looking doe which went down nicely, and the rest scattered as expected. I then walked over and set my rifle and gear against a tree and proceeded to bleed and deal with the carcass, which at this time was now dark, but with a full moon and headlamp I was still happy enough to carry on. It was after I had removed the insides that I heard a distinct crack of a breaking stick, like you would hear in the movies if someone was sneaking up on someone and got caught. I looked around, and with the full moon I could see pretty well, and I saw nothing. So I continued. It was after I heard a second crack that I really started to pay attention, because it certainly wasn't like someone stepped on a twig. It was like someone had quite a large branch and put their knee on it and broke it just out of my range of sight. After a few seconds of dead silence, I walked a few feet and collected my rifle and loudly cycled the bolt and announced that I was a hunter, and if you were the same or a farmer, that now would be the most sane time to own up to prevent getting shot. Nothing. After that silence that rings in your ears that's louder than a train, I returned to the kangaroo and lay my rifle next to it and continued on my duties. After a few more minutes, I know I heard something like it was slowly circling me as I kneeled there and made its way in a circular motion around me, but was just out of sight in the bush, where the moon and headlamp could not reach it. I was starting to actually get really scared, but reminded myself that there is nothing like bears or wolves in Australia, and especially where I was in Katanning, there were no dingoes, or actually anything that could harm me besides snakes or spiders. I thought it might be an animal attracted to me through either the light I was showing off my headlamp or the noise I was making, so I decided to shoot my rifle into the air to see if it would scare it off. I had a point, 308, so in no small way was it a small bang, so I let one off. After my ears stopped ringing, I found that it only worsened the noise of walking around me, and it now seemed like there were more than one and maybe even three that were walking around. I then remembered what my Nana said about being alone in the bush in no-gear country, and she always had a fire because the light scared the mummery men away, not sure how it's spelled, and that if you ever took food from their land, it would upset them and they would stalk you, so you had to make sure you offered an offering from your kill, and not a shit bit either, it had to be genuine. Well, at this point, I was shitting myself, so I cut off the kangaroo tail, which is considered the absolute best of the whole animal, and loudly exclaimed that I was very sorry that I came without permission, and I offered the best part of the roo, and I hoped I would be forgiven and could return home to my family. I swung that fucking roo tail around my head like a champion Olympic hammer thrower and thrived to miss the large white gums and heard it land off in the leaves out of sight. And just like that, it all stopped. I did not fuck around, and I grabbed the roo's legs and straddled them around my neck and grabbed my shit and started heading for the care high. Was probably about 15 minutes in a straight line fashion. Thank you for spending time with me. If you have a true story you'd like to share, something eerie, strange, or unforgettable, send them to my email in the description below. clairetruestory@gmail.com. I'd love to feature your story in an upcoming video. Until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and stay cozy.